Hello, my name is Brian Covington, and this is my presentation about child advocacy. First thing to understand is that it's very important to understand why there needs to be child advocates. Children in our education system right now are going through the same thing that we had to go through as children as far as education goes. Constantly, I talk to people in the field of education, and the first thing they tell me is that the system is broken. There's many things that need to be done to the education system, but it's a point of finding out where you can start. The children that we teach are learning what we teach them. So if we don't teach them the right things, they're not going to know what's right from wrong. They're going to base what they learn on what we've given to them. The first thing I want to touch on is a couple of the socialist theories. First theory I want to discuss is the Braunfeller's theory, which is based on the social systems that a child faces during their development. You have the mesosystem, you have the ecosystem, and you know everything that surrounds a child influences them as part of their development. And there's also the systems that work with or against each other in a positive or negative fashion, which is also something you need to take into consideration. If a child has a lot of positive reinforcement in the home, but they don't have that positive reinforcement in the school, it's going to kind of balance itself out with a negative reaction. If they have positive reactions and positive reinforcement also during the school time and at home, it's going to create positive results for the child. Based on the video that we watched during this course, one of the biggest things that jumped out was when that lady spoke about having a child get only two answers right on the test. Instead of her saying that you got minus 28 or whatever it may be, she instead said, hey, you got two right. You're a lot closer to getting more right than you are to being at zero. So then, as that being said, it's a great example of using positive reinforcement and saying, hey, you're doing good. You could do better, but you're not as bad as possibly can be. You're not at the worst. So that's one thing we have to remember when educating our children is that positive reinforcement. It goes a long way. Also, we got to understand that it's very important to have factors as far as strengthening communication with families, as we mentioned in the strengthening family plan. One thing that it seems that some parents think is that the education system is responsible for all education for the child. I don't have a kid myself, but in my opinion, I feel that it's very important for parents to take part in their child's education. Make sure they're taking some time out of the day to read with them, for example. Go over the homework with them. And it's tough too because in today's society and our economy that we currently face, rent's going up, cost of living keeps getting higher. Minimum wage is very low amount. And with the separation of families, oftentimes there's a single parent having to work those extra hours in order to put food on the plate and to be able to keep the lights on and pay bills, make sure they're able to take care of the child. So it creates a smaller amount of time for them to be able to spend with the child to help in the development of their education. But any little bit helps. And again, it goes back to that positive reinforcement, with the child and making sure that the systems are affected. There's the outer system as well where they have no control of. Maybe what's going on in society, no control of the economy, really, what's happening right now. And there's really nothing much you could do about it except work hard and the time that you do have, spend with your child and help them learn about their education. The next theory I want to discuss is Albert Bandura. He had the theory that was made famous because of the Bobo doll. During this experiment, he had children observe an adult act a certain way towards this doll. Some of it involved pushing, some of it involved violent hits. There was even a chest or a table next to it that had weapons like guns and play knives. And what they found out is that children observe other adults and will often mimic what they do. This is true on a high scale and on a bigger scale, that children are going to repeat and mimic what they see adults do. That tends to be part of the way that they develop even as a young child. They'll repeat and mimic anything as small as the emotions and the facial gestures that are shown by the parents. You'll see a parent smile, oftentimes you'll see the kid do the same thing. They'll learn by mimicking as far as grabbing a spoon or a fork to pick up when it's time to eat, picking up a cup or a bottle. It goes a lot deeper because it also connects to emotions as well. If a child sees an adult getting mad and upset all of the time, there's a chance that the child's gonna reflect that and mimic that emotion as well. So, that being said, as parents and as educators, it's very important that we discuss this and consider this when we're around our children that we're either teaching or parenting, because they are going to mimic us and be a direct reflection of what's around them. So, in the school system, it's very important that we keep a positive attitude. And, it's tough when you work with children, especially when you have that passion where you want to help them develop and further their education. It can become stressful at times. But you can't let that stress get to you, and, can't let them see you sweat, as they say for the saying. Meaning that you have to have a positive attitude, as much as possible. We're all humans. We're all going to have emotions show at times. But when it comes down to it, we have to be that champion. We have to be that positive role model for the children to look up to and for the children to learn from, not only by what we teach them in our textbooks and not only by what we say during our lectures, but how we act and how we present ourselves and how we carry ourselves as well. One of the big issues I had when I was going through the reports is the fact that there's so many children that are unable to read at grade level. To me, that is understandable. One of the biggest concerns I had when going through the state report is that kids were unable to read at grade level. To me, that's not understandable. We need more systems in our school that are teaching children how to read. And if they're at a grade level where they can't read and they're supposed to be able to read at that grade level, there's other issues we have to keep involved. The other issue is the community itself. It's a lot of poverty out there and a lot of economical issues. And I had a discussion recently with one of the teachers I work with, and education is expensive, as the legislation passed a law a while back. They made it mandatory and also free on the account of the taxpayers that children were able to attend school from 1st to 12th grade. A lot of the funding for schools actually comes through property taxes. So, with that being said, an area that has a population with a higher income and higher paid housing is going to have a higher amount of the percentage from the property taxes to fund the schools and therefore fund the programs and fund the education for the children that are living within that area. The problem with that is that children in lower income areas and areas that aren't receiving as much from that property tax are not getting the same opportunities within the education, which goes back to the systems of the Braunfelders theory. The way to overcome this is possibly have a property tax that is spread throughout the entire U.S. for all school systems, not necessarily having to be just for the area that those houses are in. The problem with that, though, is that the people that live within those communities are going to feel that the money they pay off of their property tax should only go to the schools where their child is part of and not as a collective education. How can we advocate for our children? Communication. Communication is key. Here's the thing. What does it mean to advocate for a child? It means that we're speaking on behalf of the children to get them better education, to help them develop properly, to help them grow and become enriched with social skills as well as knowledge. The issue that underlies with this is that everybody's going to have their opinion on what they think is going to be better for the children, what they believe is going to benefit the child. Now, the issue with that is, first of all, with parents, they're all going to feel like they need to get something catered to just their child. As educators, they want to have something that's able to be catered to the entire classroom. The balance that needs to be discovered between the two is what is vital to the growth and to the success of the developed propositions that are created between the two. This being said, communication is key between the two parties. Educators need to be open to suggestions and ideas from the community, from the parents, and parents need to communicate with the teachers and educators to see what is on the lesson plan, what's being taught to the children, and how they are learning and how they are developing and how they are growing fundamentally. If a child is in 5th grade and cannot read at a 5th grade level, this should be something that has been noticed or caught on to at a previous time. They're either not receiving the proper education of how to read and how to develop the skills to read. There might be something else with brain function that is happening and needs to be discovered to possibly see how we can help that and help them achieve a cognitive level that they need to be on at that age group. And it also goes back to standards. What are the standards that we are placing for our children? Where do we feel that our children should be on an educational level? What are we comparing it to? Are we comparing it to our classes in the past, or are we comparing it to other countries? We as advocates have to figure out what is best for the children. In the end, it is what is best for the children. And in the end, it cannot harm other children as well. We are educating a group of kids and not just one type of child. Every child is different. Every child has a different way of learning, just as every teacher is different and every teacher has a different style of teaching. We as advocates need to not only speak for our children, but put in the work and put in the footwork. There are plenty of resources out there, resources that are very beneficial. But if a parent does not know about these resources and a child does not know about these resources, what's the point of there being a resource? It's just a waste. So we need to be able to get these resources out to the parents. Find out which parents need which resources. How can we help as a community? How can we come together? We're saying it multiple times in the discussion board, and you're going to hear it throughout other courses, and you've probably heard it before this class, that it takes a village to raise a child, and it's true. It takes people from all aspects to do their due diligence in helping a child fully develop to their full potential. Thank you.